All right, so Dusty Baker
Very
talking to the
opinionated on
media said that I'm opinionated about everything.
I know.
Dusty Baker said that Michael Brantley is sore and was sent back to Houston to get checked out. So that's the new information that we have on Dusty Baker. Greg Rajan, who I think is who is in
Rajan,
I guess he's an anime. He says right here on his Twitter, it's pronounced RAH-JIN. So it sounds like Rajan to me.
Okay.
Greg Rajan. But he says Michael Brantley is not here. He said Dusty Baker said Michael Brantley went to get his shoulder checked out because it was more sore than normal after his rehab assignment. Said the hope is he joins the Astros for the next series in Chicago, which that's next Friday. That's May 12th. Wait, no, that's not May 12th. I think it's May 19th of when the Astros play Chicago. No, wait, they play Chicago right after this trip. So the hope is that he comes back for Chicago. So he's coming back to Houston to get the shoulder checked out, and then Dusty's saying that he hopes he's with the team in Chicago. That doesn't mean, I guess, to play.
He was just more sore than normal.
And then Chandler Rome with the most descriptive and perhaps the most negative way to spin this, which is very Chandler Rome thing to do. He says the Astros sent Michael Brantley back for further testing. He is, quote, more sore than usual because he played a lot on his minor league rehab assignment, Dusty Baker said. He was playing every other day.
So he overdid it?
He was playing every other day, and the last time he played was on May 6th. So
Damn, that stint at first base killed him.
I don't know how I feel about this. This isn't good. This is not a good
I'll tell you
thing.
this. After what we talked about and the way the quotes were coming in early, this is best case scenario. Because if they think he's got
Is
a chance, if they think he's got a chance to play in Chicago,
Well, it doesn't necessarily say play. It says rejoin the team. He was just with the team in Anaheim.
good call. Yeah.
Yeah, he says that. He said the hope is he joins the Astros for the next series in Chicago. That doesn't say be activated.
That's
It doesn't
a good
say to
call.
be in the lineup.
And the
It doesn't say
Astros
to
have been
play.
known to spin it. So, yeah.
Like, that could actually be worst case scenario. Like, the imaging is not good. He's back with the team as opposed to going on another rehab
I
assignment.
picked up what the Astros were hoping that they were laying down, which is that they're leading you to believe that he could be back to play in Chicago, and maybe he's just there to be be cheerleader again.
He's getting looked at. He's getting imaging done. He's being looked at by doctors. Like, this isn't good.
And then Dusty said that Chas McCormick's back is sore.
Yeah.
And he thinks he overdid it during his minor league rehab stint, and he thinks maybe Michael Brantley did the same thing.
Brantley was playing every other day. What did he do to overdo it? He was playing baseball.
Those ping
Is it his throwing
those ping
shoulder
pong
that he
tournaments
hurt?
get kind of
No, it's not his throwing shoulder. It's his
Okay.
right shoulder.
Yeah, no,
Remember
we
the Bagwell
had the
clip?
audio.
That's right.
Yeah.
Although who knows? Bagwell knows what he's talking about. Maybe
I mean,
Bagwell's wrong.
isn't Jake
I think
Myers
it's,
a
I'm
split
pretty
guy?
sure it's his right shoulder.
Yeah, it's just I don't know.
Did you read it like me that if he's going to be back in Chicago, I read it that he'd be available to play in Chicago, but then the way Jeremy describes it, I think he might be right because the Astros, they don't like to tell you the truth.
It's so hard with Dusty because it just I don't know. One thing, it's not a criticism of Dusty Baker necessarily, but when Dusty Baker first took the job
Sounds like a
in
criticism.
2020, he overshared with injuries, and then after he overshared, to me it felt like he got like a slap on the wrist.
Probably.
And then that's when the word discomfort started showing up. And like, so Dusty, to me, my personal belief is that the Astros doctors do not share all the medical information with him because they're worried he's going to say too much.
There's
I think
no way they're not sharing with him all of the information. He is the manager of the team.
I don't care. I think he might be right.
Then why does he say things like he's going to be back and then all of a sudden he's not back?
because he's incredibly vague with the media, and he doesn't like Chandler.
I don't know. Like, it's weird to me, like how like Dusty seems to always be wrong about injuries. Like, go back to the Yordan Alvarez.
The Yordan thing with
the two hands versus one hand. Like, it seems like there's some disconnect with Dusty Baker and the medical staff.
Then Yordan had to talk because he wanted to clear it up because he didn't want to have the story be out that Dusty put out.
I don't think there's any way the manager of the team is unaware of the
I'm not going to
injuries.
say unaware, but I do agree with Joe because I've dealt with a similar situation where we had someone within our basketball operations that liked to maybe reveal a little too much. So you would get the extent of the fact that how long the player's still going to be out and that what body part was hurting, but you might not get all of it.
Would they ever withhold information from the head coach? And any head coach you've ever been around?
I think that's what I'm kind of saying.
You've been around head coaches with your time in the Rockets that they did not tell them the injury of the player?
No. You know what the injury is. You know that they hurt their ankle or you hurt this or hurt that. But if there was like an inkling that it could be season ending or stuff like that, they were not going to give him all of that right away because that would have been in the media that night in the scrum, and that they didn't want that.
Like, listen to this tweet from Chandler. It's unclear where the Astros actually sent Michael Brantley, and then in parentheses, Dusty Baker said he didn't know, and the team refuses to make its trainer available.
See, I think that's trying to be. I think it's more being vague,
just being
than
intentionally
unaware.
vague.
Yeah, I think Dusty is pretty calculated with how he addresses the media. I think he's intentionally vague, doesn't like to getting into specifics, and maybe there is a little bit of like classic conditioning based on oversharing when he was originally here, or like when he first got here. I would be stunned if they're not telling Dusty Baker information.
We've talked about
Dusty's the kind of guy that would whine if they're not.
Well, we've also talked about that Dana Brown is not James Click. Dana Brown is very forthcoming with information and very transparent. I think that's more of what Dusty is. I don't think Dana Brown's going to tell anybody not to tell Dusty things unless someone in the organization said, we've been burned by this before, so we want to be careful with this. But even still, I think Dana and Dusty are on good enough terms, and they're both similar in the way they talk about injuries.
Like, what's best case here based on the read of Brantley's shoulder?
Chicago.
You think best case scenario he's activated this week,
Yeah.
this weekend?
I do.
Yeah,
Really?
I think that's like the ultimate.
I think that's
best
you
case.
just said best case. I think that's the best case scenario.
They just sent him home from Anaheim because he's been sore with his shoulder 4 days after he last played in a game to see the doctors in Houston, and you think it's possible
you
he
asked me
plays
for
Friday?
the best case scenario.
Within reason. Do you think it's possible he plays Friday?
I think if he goes home and they look at it and they say nothing structurally has changed and there's nothing that says that there's anything that you could do more that you're going to do damage to.
Give him peace of mind?
And just understand that, this is just because you've had surgery and then you attacked it by playing and that maybe you overdid or did a little too much in the cages, whether it was how many games you played or not, that, hey, you're not doing any more damage to it. Nothing shows up that looks like there's a re-aggravation or tear. And then I think the best case scenario is he plays in the Chicago series.
You agree with that too, Joe George? Best case scenario?
Yeah.
Okay, best case scenario.
And like slow start him, like play one every 3 games.
Can you afford to do that
I mean, look
with the roster? See, I mean, Cesar Salazar's never
doesn't
playing.
matter.
When's the last
But it
time
also
that guy
doesn't matter
played?
what you're putting out there. It's a crapshoot and what you're getting offensively.
But you have to send somebody down. So, like, are you going to send somebody down
Salazar
to play every third day? I would for Salazar. I wouldn't for Jolks. I wouldn't for Hensley right now with the Dubon injury.
Yeah,
so
you can't.
It depends on who you're talking about.
And Dubon's unavailable today, but they don't believe it's serious.
Which means he felt it before it went.
They said he felt it whenever he was fielding a ground ball in the third, and then he left the game after his little bloop
You
single.
saw
later.
the little fake. He kind of winced just a little bit out of the box.
Yeah, but apparently he happened before that. What's worst case scenario?
All-Star break. Or he doesn't play the rest
I
of the
already
year.
know Joe's answer.
Yeah, the rest of the year.
Because now I almost feel like I have to double down.
You got to stay on the table.
You're like, you have the worst takes, or you have awful
I didn't say you had
takes.
the worst takes. I said you have hot takes.
Hot takes.
You have hot takes.
It's not a hot take.
What's the
What if his shoulder's messed up?
It's possible. I mean, look at
Yo,
Jeff Bagwell.
what's
We
the
saw it in
bench's
the
term?
city.
Like, this is one of those times where I don't
let
want to
Joe
be right.
cook? The bench says let Joe cook.
I don't want to cook on this one. I want to be so wrong.
Yeah.
I
Look,
want to be ice cold.
Well, just preference it by saying you want to be wrong, but worst case scenario is.
I said that.
I think it
after.
is. I think it is worst case scenario that he's done. Like
have bad takes,
he's in
Jeremy.
his late 30s.
And then Bagwell
he's
is
coming
too.
off labrum surgery. Jeff Bagwell's the guy who signed Brantley.
I was gonna
and
say.
Jeff Bagwell's career got ruined by a shoulder injury. Jeff Bagwell is the Bill O'Brien of the Houston Astros.
Bagwell's done if you
Gosh.
just the trifecta of overpaying Montero and then overpaying Abreu. And
Similar to market value.
Yeah, but with tons of extra year on there as well. And then signing Brantley and he never plays a game. Yeesh. How about consultant to the custodian next year instead of consultant to the owner?
Tag said Baker hopes to have Brantley rejoin the team in Chicago, but it's anyone's guess at this point when he'll be activated. Baker said we don't want to rush him. The timetable doesn't always match what your body tells you. I have to wait until he's better. So you have that soundbite. You have Dana Brown telling the flagship this morning they're going to slow him down. He said he thinks he'll be back. I don't think best case scenario Chicago. I think best case scenario might be the end of May.
The realistic scenario is the end of May for best case. But if you just asked right off the top
Yeah.
the best
But, like,
possible
hearing-
case scenario, then you believe that Chicago is where he'll rejoin the team and he'll play one of the games in Chicago.
I mean,
don't like these quotes.
maybe best case is the Cubs series next Monday.